someone would ask me, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a wealth manager." And they would say, "How can you be so spiritual and be a wealth manager?" So I said, "Well, that tells me a lot more about you than it does me, because really money is just a neutral tool. It's not good or bad. The character that's revealed through the use of that tool makes it look good or bad. I mean, you can have nuclear power light up cities, or it can blow up people. So it's a character revealed through the use of these tools that make them look good or bad. And that's the way money is."
Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and we are kicking off 2025. I mean, 2025 has been a little off to an incredibly challenging start, actually. So I'm considering February 1st to be the start of 2025. It sort of went into a free fall for a bit. So I'm super excited about this show. I have on today one of the most exciting guests I think I've had on this show, and I cannot wait for you to hear him talk about not just investing, but all kinds of relationship with money topics and mindset topics and spiritual topics and things that are going to give you such a different perspective on money and finance and wealth. And so just can't wait to bring him on. So I'm going to do that immediately. Today, we have on the Money and You show Tim Jai Baker, the CEO of Luminous Wealth. Tim's pioneering approach to family wealth guides a philosophy that wealth management works best when it's tightly integrated with personal well-being and firmly grounded in lifelong positive relationships. Since 1981, Tim has been helping individuals, families, businesses, and institutions steward their financial hopes and dreams. He brings a wealth of experience from financial disciplines and integrates that with his work in the field of human psychology and design, utilizing tools like human archetype assessments and family genograms, which help reveal an individual's authentic potential and align financial strategies with personal values. Jai's mission is to guide his clients toward their deepest desires and true fulfillment by fostering a healthy, stress-free environment where financial and personal well-being are seamlessly integrated. He believes that wealth management should not occur in isolation, but rather as part of a holistic approach that considers the whole person. To achieve that vision, Jai has assembled a team of multidisciplinary professional advisors working from a centralized location, ensuring that the mission statement of the families his company serves is effectively realized. Now residing in Jupiter, Florida, Jai lives an active and conscious lifestyle with adult children and grandchildren near and afar. He enjoys golf, running, local beaches, college sports, writing, meditation, well living, nutrition, global travel, and attends retreats on human consciousness and remains in gratitude for each present moment. Hello, welcome, Jai. So nice to have you here.
Oh, Michelle, thanks for having me on your show. I was really looking forward to this. And I send my love and compassion to all those in your area there that's dealing with the tragic fires.
Thank you. That is very much appreciated. And I think that spirit of caring and kindness is helping greatly. There's been a lot of that, and it's really made a huge difference. So thank you.
Of course.
And that's that kind of is, I think, symbolic of who you are in the world. And I think it's really, I love we had a conversation. I love your perspective I love your history and experience around finances, but I also love the perspective you have around money and money consciousness. And so I really want to dive into that because even just the way you talk about money is calming, which I think is not the norm for people thinking and talking about money. And so I think it's a very healthy show for people today. I think it's a way for people to go into the new year and in the next chapter of whatever their life is right now with the right mindset and the right way of perceiving and understanding finance. So, I'd love for you to talk a little about your journey, kind of where you started and how you got to this place you are now.
Well, I started the financial journey in 1981. We had 19.5% 30-year mortgage rates. We had 10% unemployment, 10% inflation, 21% money market yields, and obviously the stock markets weren't doing very well. But I was trained in the insurance industry, and it was a unusual time because they were creating a lot of new product back then because of the high interest rates. They developed universal life contracts where a person could put their money to work in high interest rate policies instead of getting the low returns of the whole life contracts they had. Then they were also developing variable life insurance contracts because people wanted to invest in the stock market as well with their cash values. So there was many products that were developed in. I was rookie agent of the year in the state of South Carolina for my work, and I actually hated my job with the insurance industry. But that knowledge was great knowledge of knowing how the insurance watch was made. For my advice giving through the years. Then I was with a financial planning firm for 7 years. That's when financial planning was actually in its infancy. And then I went to work with a regional Wall Street firm out of Baltimore, Legg Mason Wood Walker. So I learned the Wall Street watch at that point. And then I took all of that knowledge and I decided that the only way I could control the quality of my client's experience was to develop my own office. And so I started out just with me and an assistant promoting it as a multi-generational financial planning firm, and then built out my vision of how wealth management services should be delivered to the consuming public. So through the years, I wound up adding a CPA, then I added another CPA to my staff, and I hired an attorney. I had other wealth advisors. And before I sold it 4 years ago, I brought in an Ayurvedic practitioner for mind, body, spirit work. But my conscious part of the journey started, I would say, in 1997, learning my meditation techniques through Dr. Deepak Chopra. After learning my basic mantra meditation technique in Bedford, Virginia, which, by the way, healed a shoulder injury that I had and was, and I carried with me for 9 months before embarking on my meditation path. And I wasn't looking for meditation to do anything for me. It just happened that way. But then I went to Wollongong, Australia for 8 days with Dr. Chopra. We meditate 2 hours in the morning, lecture throughout the day, 2 hours in the evening, dinner, entertainment at night, recapitulation before going to bed. And through the years, I went to several more of his retreats, but also went to other retreats as well through the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. And these retreats were anywhere from 3 days to week-long retreats. And I never asked anybody at these retreats, especially up front, what they did for a living. I just wanted to know them as a person, their family, where they're from, what their desires were. But usually after a day or two or three, someone would ask me, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a wealth manager." And they would say, "How can you be so spiritual and be a wealth manager?" So I said, "Well, that tells me a lot more about you than it does me, because really money is just a neutral tool. It's not good or bad. The character that's revealed through the use of that tool makes it look good or bad. I mean, you can have nuclear power light up cities, or it can blow up people. So it's a character revealed through the use of these tools that make them look good or bad. And that's the way money is. And so I also found out through the years that not many Americans have a good relationship with money. And so it's just like, if you don't have a good relationship with your partner, you're just an accident looking for a place to happen. And so we have to change these relationships in order to get the great benefits that we can through their use.
Yes, thank you. I think that's such a fascinating journey, and you said so many things in there that are interesting, especially how people do just believe in this divide between, you can't be a spiritual person if you care about money at all, which all of these things are... They just highlight the poor relationships that, most of us have with money. And I think that stems from not knowing that money is a relationship. I mean, we're not taught that. I mean, I have a financial background and nobody mentioned that until I got out into the world and found the kind of people that you're talking about who just speak differently about these things. And so I think that's the first step, is helping people to understand that they, in fact, have a relationship with money, and that's going to impact what the decisions they make and what they do with their money, really more than any practical kind of understanding that they have.
Right. Well, we represent 4.2% of the global population, and we've created 62% of the world's business valuation. And yet PBS had this story on the dilemma of Americans' retirement. So that's a pretty huge divide, that we have 62% of the world's money, and yet we can't figure out how to have a good relationship and an experience for a fulfilling life. So there's many layers to why that is. But the first layer is the delivery system of financial services to the consuming public. The public faces a very muddied landscape when they're trying to gain knowledge about how to manage their wealth. They don't know what they're going to get when they walk into a Northwestern Mutual office or a Merrill Lynch office or JP Morgan. And they're going to get a variety of advice and sales of products. There's a lot of, Wall Street, Bank Street, and Insurance Street lack integrity and morality from my experience through those 39 years. Only 1 in 10 financial people in the industry in the United States are fee-only advisors. These are people who are required to be fiduciaries for their clients. They have to put their clients' interest ahead of their interest. So you have 9 out of 10 people that have a potential conflict of interest in their recommendations to the consuming public, meaning they may say that they can provide fee-only services, but also they're not fee-only, they're fee-based, meaning they also have licenses to sell insurance products and other investment products that carry a one-time commission charge. And so when you're putting salespeople to work and they don't have this conscious background and they have these conflicts of interest, they're not always going to make good recommendations to their clients. And so the consumer is like third on the totem pole of the financial delivery system. First, the companies are going to want to have their salespeople sell those products for their profit. The salespeople are obviously putting their interest ahead of their clients because they want to put money in their pocket, and the client's customer is third in line. Now, these people and institutions don't mind their consumers making money, but they're going to make theirs first. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be a more dramatic way of our financial system delivering this advice. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that happens through these podcasts that I've been interviewing on and over time, is not just to help the consumers, but hopefully have the financial industry change the way that they're delivering services in a more conscious way to the consuming public.
Yeah, well, that's a noble mission on your part. So, and I feel like there are many people who've been in the industry and either get turned off for one reason or another, and actually are great about coming onto podcasts and talking about what they've actually seen, because the rest of us, we can't possibly know the nuts and bolts of what's going on without being, in the midst of all of it. So when you have, it's really great to come on and help people to see, your perspective on what's really going on and what people can do to have a better experience. So you've created something entirely new, and you've written a book. I would love for you to talk for a minute about your book, because I started listening to it and it's wonderful.
Well, the book is just my observations of the industry, in the 39 years prior to writing the book. And I weave in there a lot of client situations. I change their names, obviously. I even change a little bit of the context of what I'm talking about, but the basic story about each person's situation is real. One of the things that comes to mind is we're talking about this is 1 year. So I was working with about 155 families when I sold my practice to my colleagues. And about 80% of them were physicians or executives at hospitals or the hospitals themselves. I mean, I was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and you had two 25,000 employee hospitals in that town, North Carolina Baptist Hospital and Novant, which used to be Forsyth County Hospital. And you had Wake Forest University that was cranking out the doctors at North Carolina Baptist Hospital. And then you had RJR Tobacco there. Wake Forest was also a law school. So you had healthcare, lawyers, and tobacco. What a great combination that was. But I was working with this medical clinic, and they had 68 physicians. They had a very small executive staff, and I was managing their 401k plan. Many of the physicians were private clients of mine. But this particular day, I was having a luncheon with the executives, and we all sat at one long table. And these people made anywhere from $60,000 to $260,000 in annual income. And they were and most of them had a partner. So that was one half of the household income. And somebody said something negative about money. So I stopped the luncheon. I said, we're going to pause here and we're going to take a break and we're going to go through a little exercise. Now, I had never done this before. I hadn't thought about it. I don't know what came over me to do this, but I had them take some deep breaths and get settled in their chair and get quiet. And I said, I'm going to say a word to you. And after I say the word, I want you to sensate what your body is feeling like, maybe even where you're feeling the sensation in your body. And then I want you to keep your eyes closed for a moment or two. And so everybody took 3 deep breaths, and I said the word money. And I let them sit with that for a minute. And I said, now before you open your eyes, you either had a negative, a positive, or a neutral sensation when I said the word money. So I had them raise their hand for those who had a negative sensation. And I didn't have to ask how many had a neutral or positive sensation, because all 14 had a negative sensation about money. That's part of the reason why we're having issues in our country with money and why people aren't managing it well. I mean, when you think about it, managing money is a very recent phenomenon to the human condition. Until basically the 1940s and 50s, most of the consuming public were working for bigger companies. And if they had retirement plans, the companies were managing those in defined benefit plans. They didn't have 401k plans back then. So, even the wealthy people, even the doctors, their first big savings comes forward in in retirement plan contributions. It's not in after-tax savings, because the first couple of years after being in medical school for 12 years, they're wanting to finally enjoy some of all the hard work that they had. And so they're buying the homes and spending money on furniture and cars and other things. And so, it's only in the last 50, 60 years that Americans have been faced with this challenge of managing their financial resources. And our education system has done nothing to prepare our society for this.
That's actually super fascinating to look at it from that historical perspective and realize it just hasn't been a thing for that long. And I think that works well in the context of how much shame people have around not knowing what to do, and which I think is a big problem. And I think it's why a lot of people sort of run away from the whole thing and avoid it, is because they think everybody else knows what they're doing. And for some reason they don't. And so, and it becomes almost too embarrassing to go sit down with somebody like you and talk about it. But that is very interesting, because it just hasn't been that long that we've had to do it. It also made me think about, it really is so much in our own hands now. And I look at all the young people, like I have a 24 and a 27-year-old child, and, they're already frantically trying to figure out how to invest, because I think they're feeling that pressure that they really need to understand it and get involved early. Which on the one hand is a good thing, but on the other hand, the anxiety around it isn't particularly good. So.
Yeah, most people are, it's a very daunting task to go into a financial office and talk about their wealth affairs, especially if, the person on the other side of the counter is just trying to figure out where they're going to make the biggest commission on the assets or insurance contracts that they have. And the first thing that they do is they give them this 10 or 12 questionnaire that's a risk tolerance questionnaire that so that the companies that they work for, the compliance departments, have done a CYA on the advisor to know thy client.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't work, because they're asking these clients risk tolerance questions in order to get to know that client when the client doesn't even know themselves.
Right.
So the first order of business in any work that we do is to help someone know thyself. To know thyself is to know all of reality. And also beyond that, once you wake up to that, to know thyself also reveals the programming that took place through age 7. So, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, doesn't matter. We know that we have this DNA lineage that comes through the material body with us. And then we're in mom's womb for 9 months, taking on all of her chemistry and emotions in that 9-month period. And then through age 7, our minds are basically in a theta state. That's a state where your mind's a sponge and it can't say no to anything in your environment. And so whatever you experience through age 7, you've accepted as your program or your life's truth and how the world actually works. And so you're going to experience life with that programming. At age 7, we form a beta mind. We're operating right now in this conscious state with a beta frequency where I can say something and you can say, no, that's not true. But until then, the children are being raised in that hypnotic state. And so we become the garbage bins of everybody else's desires and viewpoints of the world. And left unchecked, you've lived a life that's been fated to you. If you can somehow wake up one day, either through pain or not pain, and say, I've been doing a lot of things that everybody else wants me to do, and this just doesn't feel authentic to me. There feels like something else that's pulling me to do something else, to be something else. When you wake up to that, we have the ability to reprogram our minds. And when you reprogram your mind, you start living more authentically in the world. Now you're living your life of destiny, one that you've chosen and hasn't been programmed into you.
Yeah, I couldn't love that more because that's a big missing piece in people's consciousness that that's even possible, and this idea that your entire life is sort of being running. It's run by circumstances and events and beliefs that you are imprinted somewhere in your mind, but not necessarily chosen. That's all so fascinating to me, and I felt like none of that was ever taught to me either. Even becoming a CPA and working in accounting and finance for many, many years, and none of this was ever mentioned. It was all about just learn the stuff and then go implement it, and it's just missing the the biggest part of the puzzle here. So,
Right.
and it is possible for people to become much more consciously aware with guidance from somebody like you. And then it just changes everything. It's a whole different decision-making process and everything else, and a whole different outlook. How would you get somebody to, you mentioned a couple of the things that you do to help people know themselves, but what else do you do to help people become more conscious around this?
Well, the first thing that we do is we provide a human archetype assessment tool. It's based on the Carl Jung work of personas. We obviously we have more than 8 billion people on the planet. Everybody has their own unique thumbprint of who they are in their life, but you can provide and look at people in broad swaths. And I work with a company called DNA Behavior out of Atlanta. Hugh Massey, who's an Australian, was the genius behind developing this work. And he's developed an assessment tool that puts people in 10 different personas and then can drill down into the more details of each persona to get your unique thumbprint to know yourself. And so it's going to reveal it's going to reveal both your strengths, but more importantly, it's going to reveal those biases you have, those blind spots in your life. And typically these blind spots are creating the bad outcomes and the bad choices and the bad patterns that you've been experiencing. And so that's the revealing factor in these reports that we do. And so usually I'll have, if I'm working with a couple, they'll come into the conference room. They've each one taken the human archetype assessments. And that's the first thing we'll start chatting about. And quite typically, one or the other spouse will say, wow, this thing really had me nailed, but there's this one thing that I just don't see. I don't agree with it. And usually the spouse on the other side of the table is smiling, shaking their head, and they're going, that's exactly who you are. The reason why we can't see our blind spots is because we are so much that.
Yeah.
Fire doesn't know itself to be hot. Water doesn't know itself to be wet. So when we have these patterns that we're so much that of, we don't recognize them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I did an assessment very similar to that. And that's when the light bulb went off for me about why I was making, honestly, some very poor financial decisions, even though I knew better, I was just doing it. It was an automatic response to situations. And then once you understand it and you can step back and, pause before you act, it becomes a whole different situation, and you do feel so much more in control. And I think one of the big issues with money is we do feel out of control. We don't feel confident in what we're doing. We feel like, we're just sort of riding this wave, and it just takes us places, and we have to cope, which is not obviously what you're helping people to do. But it's a very emotional experience dealing with money. And now, I look at the situation we're in Los Angeles, and money is on everybody's minds, and it feels like this event, this external event, the fire, has totally, interrupted everybody's, path. And so money is, once again, this huge stress, feels like it's outside of ourselves. What would you say to people?
Well, what you're talking about is emotional intelligence, right? when what happens is when we get to these states of surprise or states of fear or panic, we're now going back to our reptilian mind, and we're acting in that fight, flight, or freeze state. So you're in that reaction mode. What you're talking about a moment ago is to pause. So if you pause, now you can make a discerning decision and you can now control the environment. But if you're acting out of that reactionary state, your environment's going to control you. And so all of these things have to be pre-planned. But to your point, I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and the speaker got up and he was going to present his next idea for developing a software. And his opening statement was, money is the biggest stressor in America. And I'm in there with 20 other entrepreneurs, and I raised my hand. I said, no, it's not. And he said, do you want to say more? I said, it's your mind. Master your mind, and you master your money issues, you master your career issue, you master your relationship issues, you master your health. So the first order of business in all of this is mastering your mind and putting your life back on the right foundation. I mean, you can't get to the 10th floor of the building of your life and then find out you have a structural problem on the foundation and think that rearranging the chairs on the Titanic is going to give you a different result. And so you have to tear the building down and build a strong foundation again. So many people in our culture are wandering or walking around feeling totally separate from each other because most Americans don't feel that that they have a non-physical aspect of who we are. And so when you're just dealing with the five senses and feeling like you're the skin encapsulated bag of bones, and you're grabbing for that last unconscious economic slice of the pie, because if you don't get it, somebody else is going to get it because we're all separate. That's where the problems are. The conscious person says, go ahead and take that economic slice of the pie because I'm just going to make another pie.
Yeah.
So we first have to get back to our grounding state, our conscious state, in order to deal with some of these outer world issues. It's an inside out job. It's not an outside in job.
Yeah.
And that's what people are dealing with. They're dealing with, oh my God, my outer world isn't what I want it to be. And so that, therefore, it affects their inner world. And for years, I started, just out of the blue, I started asking my potential new clients that was coming into the office, I would ask them, what is the source of your joy? And so they would say things like, well, our vacation home, or my 3 grandkids, or my horse ranch, or my playing on the weekends, or tennis. Well, that told me what they were interested in, but it didn't tell me what I was really hoping to hear. I was really hoping to hear them say, I am joy. And out of my joy gets reflected back from my outer world, the joy that I am, that shows up as a vacation home or these 3 grandkids. Mm. And so I see a very missing element with the human condition right now. And that's that we don't realize that we have such an all-powerful, non-physical aspect of who we are. I mean, we're not a body that has a soul. We're a soul that happens to have a body right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautifully said. Not necessarily easy to grasp, but it takes some work to get to where you've gotten to. But definitely, if people are hearing some of these things, and I'm hoping that is interesting enough to go and start doing some of that work, because once you start understanding some of these things, at least for me, I became obsessed. I mean, it was just because that's the stuff that we actually have some control over. I mean, we don't.
Absolutely. I have never, ever tried to convince anybody of anything. I tell my story. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't resonate, great. It's just
Right.
some information people aren't ready for.
Right. Right.
And one day, maybe they will. But there's that seed there that gives them the opportunity to embrace and to come back to at a later date.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things that I really enjoyed too when I was listening to your book, I really loved your description of capitalism, because I think just that word has a tendency. I mean, it's almost a divisive word at this point, and there is so much negativity around it. And the way you described it, I thought would really help people to see the value versus, kind of the more negative side of it. I don't know if you can summarize it a little bit, but it was great, I thought.
Well, most people associate capitalism with their experience with their insurance, their banking, and their Wall Street industries, which what we've stated here, the premise is they're not going to have a great experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just middlemen to capitalism. I mean, capitalism has raised the quality of living for all people on the planet in a significant way and very consistently. But the reason people that don't look at capitalism very well is they haven't had good experiences with their financial industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, capitalism is simply just the exchange of goods, services, and information. And I don't think, in the next couple of weeks that 8 billion people are going to start being all independently self-sustaining in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to do as Michael Cox, who is an economic professor at SMU and wrote a book called Myths of the Rich and Poor. He was also the advisor to the Federal Reserve Chairman, Richard Fisher at Bank of Dallas. And he said, do what you do best and pay for the rest. And that's basically what we do on this planet. And instead of bartering, because we're too multidimensional at this point to barter everything, we wind up exchanging currency. And the currency used to be rocks and coins and gold bars, and then it became paper, and then it became digitized, and that's where we are today. So people need to embrace capitalism. It's how we bring actually many different cultures, religions, people, races together to build a particular product. I mean, thousands of people that might, at some level of life, even think they hate the other person, but they brought this product, the service, for the benefit of the person that's going to use it. And that's what capitalism is.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that was, and I mean, to take it to I guess the next step is that it's what allows people to choose work that they either love or are more talented at or find more fulfilling, because like you said, you can choose what you do best and let other people do the other things, and then it all comes together and we have what we need, which I thought I don't necessarily think people are putting all of that together. So on a greater level, it is a really wonderful thing. I mean, there are things that happen as a result that people may have bad experiences with, but that doesn't make it the culprit, just like money isn't the problem.
Right. I mean, people say, I want more money in my life. I say, well, provide more services to people.
Well,
it's not a miracle. There's a process to why money shows up in a person's life.
Yeah.
And once you understand that process, and that's educating yourself with for your intellect through your either trade schools or your colleges, and then choosing the right type of career because you are passionate about it and you have a skill set for it, then you're going to wind up having these things. But I think most people in America live from this have, do, be concept or sequence. They see something they want, and then they figure out how they want to be able to buy it through their efforts of work or however they create that revenue. And then that's who they have become. Instead, people need to live their life in a be, do, have process. That has become the best version of you that you can be, that's been incarnated into this human body from your higher self. And then out of that being, you're going to start to do things that you're passionate about and you love, but you're wholly secure and feeling safe in who you are. You're authentic of who you are. And then out of that doing, the return comes back to you, and that's what you wind up having around you.
Right.
But we're not coming from that place of being first. I mean, we have these to-do lists to do, and people go, I've got 10 things to do today. But I said, well, why don't you write a to-be list? Who do you want to be?
Yeah, I love that.
Nobody ever writes a to-be list.
No.
But the to-do list is temporal. It's in this physical realm. The to-be list is eternal. This is a vibration you're going to carry with you through all of time, whatever your concept is of beyond this physical body.
Right. Yeah, that's such a brilliant point and such a brilliant exercise for people to literally write down what they, who they want to be. I feel like people think the having will allow them to be whatever it is that they want to be. And so to flip that is super important, because that isn't really how it works. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they sacrifice, in order to have, they sacrifice their relationships, they sacrifice their health, they sacrifice their emotional intelligence, and they're really out of balance with this human experience when they approach life from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you think about it being as simple as flipping that, those three things, that makes it doable. Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us a little about what you have created in terms of your new firm, because I found that to be really amazing.
Okay. Before I do, I'm going to, because this is an important step. After I have somebody do the human archetype assessment, we then go in to do a family genogram. Because to know thyself human archetype assessment will say, here you are, but then the genogram will reveal to you why you became who you are. Okay. So this is developing the family lineage, the grandparents, the parents, asking 6 or 7 basic questions about each one of those people, including the siblings, knowing the children beneath the clients that we're working with. And I'm wanting to know about their family's education, relationships, economy, health, spirituality, and then I also want to know what their money scripts were that were handed down to them, because that's what they're living. That's their assumptions of life. I mean, people live their lives based on their assumptions. You change your assumptions, you're going to change your experience with life.
Could you?
And so then after I do that, I go into the how do you feel about money exercise. But once a couple puts both of their family lineage on a piece of paper, they look at that on one sheet of paper and they go, oh my God, that's why I am the way that I am.
When you were describing the money script, can you give a little quick example of what that is?
Well, it's just like, people are maybe handed down, you got to work really hard for your money, or money doesn't grow on trees. I mean, you wouldn't want to tell an orange grove farmer in Florida that, right? Or other people go, well, money comes to me easy, and just everything that I invest in turns to gold, and everywhere in between. Those are money scripts. Okay. And so those money scripts are embedded in our subconscious conditioning. And when we're not conscious, it's just we're automatically living our life with those concepts. Right.
Right. And people are unaware that they have those too. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I've done now is, because my most wealthiest client was my most stressed out client. Mm. And I wanted to be able to help heal that in some way. And so the team that I put together now is, I have an attorney, I have a CPA, I have a real estate advisor, I'm a wealth manager planner, and then and so I call that 30 plus years of evidence-based wealth management. I mean, the most important ingredient there is not each one of those experts, but the fact that those experts are working philosophically together. They can be collegiately challenging each other with the strategies that they want to provide the client. But at the end of the day, there's going to be one best strategy to recommend to that client. And it's that team concept that's so critical in providing advice in the wealth management space. So for me, the wealth management piece is a formula, and the magic is in the teamwork. So I've taken that concept, and then what we've done is we've combined the blue zone research of a person's life. And these are the cultures around the planet that have the longest longevity and the highest qualities of life. And so I have a body nutrition coach. I have a consciousness wellness coach. I have a spiritual advisor lifestyle coach. We have an environmental coach. Because all these aspects of our lives are interrelated. I mean, your relationships will affect your estate planning for your heirs. Your health is going to affect your finances. Your emotional intelligence affects all those other aspects as well. And you can't manage money in a silo. They're all interrelated.
Yeah, I love that so much. I have never spoken to anybody with a kind of a wealth planning firm that had all those pieces in place. And so I just thought that was magic. I already feel like the financial planner, not talking necessarily to the tax accountant or the lawyer, I feel like there's already some disconnect there, and people are operating, with different goals that don't necessarily come together in my my plan.
Yeah, the wealth manager and the attorney and the CPA, and a lot of times also the attorney, need to be joined at the hip at the end of the year to do that year's worth of planning. Now that you know what most of the incomes and sales transactions and portfolios, and whether you're going to wind up doing Roth conversions or you're going to put money in donor advised funds to take advantage of the charitable deductions, all of that work and efficiency and management has to be done in November and early December. Because if you wait till tax time, you can't do much about your situation from the prior year. Yeah, you can make an IRA contribution. You might be able to make a SEP contribution, but you're basically done. You're just counting beans at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is just amazing. And then to bring all these other people in too, the nutritionist and all, it's just brilliant. I mean, that's when it really is a financial well-being
Yes.
goal versus...
Well, in the 1200s, the word wealth or wheel meant riches, prosperity, and well-being and health. And then somewhere in the mid 1400s, it all just kind of got channeled into money. And so we've lost the etymology of the real meaning of wealth. And that's what we're doing. Is we're bringing back the real meaning of wealth, which just isn't a currency, but your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like that is another place where we miss the mark. If you're just looking at a number in a bank account at the end of the road, that's just losing sight of everything that actually...
Well, he who dies with the most toys still dies.
Yeah. Yeah. What is...
But your relationships will last.
Yeah, yeah. So
that Harvard did a study. Of course, anything Harvard does a study when it has to be right? But Harvard did a study, and what their study was wanting to reveal is what is the most meaningful aspect of a person's life. And they determined through their study that it's relationships. Yeah.
I think it'd be hard to dispute that, actually. And of course, your relationships are affected by your money situation. And if your relationship is under constant financial stress, then it will be affected. So it's also intertwined. And I feel like that's where that gets forgotten, but not by you, obviously. So,
right.
I think that's amazing. I hate to even wrap up here, but we're going to have to. And I just love this conversation. And I hope you know, for me, when these things are more on the philosophical level, and when you can sort of, I don't know, you can see how the pieces come together. I feel like it just changes how money fits into the picture of your life. And I think for so many, it's too important, or it's too critical for everything else. And I think it's better sort of filtered in with everything else. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but
No, well, I mean, when a person walks out of their door in the morning, they need to feel like the world is supporting and loving them and not challenging them. And the only way to get that is to become still in yourself and at peace with yourself, and feeling connected with everything and everybody and around you.
right.
And so when you can come from that start of the day, hopefully, sometimes people will embrace the meditation technique.
Yeah.
But that's the best way to charge yourself through the day, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. Most people say, well, meditation's too hard. Well, I say, well, everything's too hard when you start it. You just have to put it in practice. And they go, well, I'm doing it on the weekends. And I say, well, you know what? That's you aren't doing it, because you would have never heard of Tiger Woods had he grown up playing weekend golf.
Yeah.
He embodies that work. So whatever you're doing to up level your consciousness state, you have to be that every day, all day long. The building that people go into to pray sometimes isn't the temple. The temple is here, this body.
Yeah. And to me, sometimes it's too hard to not do it, because the rest of my day will sometimes fall
Thank
apart
you.
pretty quickly if I don't do
I
these
love that.
things. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I've done both, and it all works much better if you make that time. So, well, Jai, thank you so much. And please tell people how they can find you, your book, information on your company.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can find me at www.luminouswealth.com. Actually, you can go on that website, and our banner, you can click on Human Archetype Assessment, and you can start to reveal and to know thyself with an assessment report that comes up right away after you've taken the quiz, and a little video about it. You can also reach me directly at tim@luminouswealth.com, and our number is 561-919-4808. And I have The Awakened Investor on Amazon, and it's in all formats of reading, from listening to it to ebook to soft and hardback.
Yeah, thank you. The book is great. I would highly recommend it, and I'll put the information on the other things in the show notes. I'm very generous that people can just go on there and take that assessment. That in itself will...
Yeah,
really
it's very valuable. It is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I just really applaud you for what you're doing and all you've learned, and I think you're an inspiration to people. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, I'm in gratitude to be here today and have this great conversation with you, Michelle.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you for being here. We love it when you listen to the Money and You Show. And please share this show with your friends, family, whoever you think could benefit from it. And I can't imagine that I think everybody would benefit from it. So please share the show. Leave us a review if you can. And we'll see you next week.
Namaste.